Hello everybody, DCB here, and welcome to another model build. Well, should I say model paint. Today I'm going to show you how to paint your Imperial Guard like this. This is based off of a World War II kind of style, with some highlights and of course some shading. So I'm going to show you the colours that I used, and then if you want to follow this guide, then by all means do so. So the main base is this Death Guard green, which I have got in a spray format and also in a paint format, just in case I need to go over any mistakes. For the trousers and the sort of tops, I'm using Elysian Camel Shade and Nergal Green. Yes, I know, traitor colours, shush. Lead Belcher for like any metal bits. Alarm clocks for alarm clocks. Balthasar Gold for the gold bits. Black for like belts and stuff like that, which is the Abaddon Black. Little bit of corn red for where the laser sight is on the lasgun. Some Rydux hide for the boots. For the whites of the eyes, we've got some white scar. And for highlights, I have Stormhost silver. For the shade, I use Agrax Earth shade. So, without any further ado, let's begin. Here we have a non-painted Imperial Guardsman. Quite standard configuration, no backpack, no little side bits. His las gun. Get me box, I do all me spraying in. Put my little guy in there. Now you can either have him laying down or you can have him standing up. For me, I lay him down, give the Death Guard green spray a shake. Get it really shaken up to get that paint flowing within the tin, canister, whatever you want to call it. Then give it a good old spray. Flip them over. The other side. Stand them up. Bit of a spray top down. And then leave them to dry for a bit. Coming back in a moment when he's dry. And there you have it. As you can see, I have left him to dry and he's all nicely sprayed. You can see it's got into all the nice recesses and stuff like that. The gun base. I've done all the others as well, so let's just line them up. Let's zoom out, in fact, so you can get a better look. As you can see, I'm going to be using a palette and some brushes. I'll tell you more about the brushes I'm using in a moment. There's, of course, the Sergeant, the Voxcaster, all the rest of the Imperial Guard, which have now been sprayed. So let's move on to painting. Let's use that one. Put these to one side for the moment. Now, for most of this painting guide, I'll be using a small layer brush and a extra small layer brush, but of course you can use whatever you want to use. So let's zoom back in on our little Imperial Guardsman, and we'll start with the first colour, which is going to be Elysian Green. I always give my pots a good shake before I do any sort of painting. This just helps make sure that the mixture is all mixed in, well, correctly. Give that a bit of an open. I'll get my small layer brush, get some from the top, and I make a little puddle on the palette I use. So, onto the palette. Of course, you don't have to use a Games Workshop palette or Games Workshop paints. You can use whatever paints that you want. Get a dab of water mix it in. This just helps the paint flow a bit better, doesn't clump up so much. Make sure I empty my brush a bit so it doesn't have overloaded. Zoom back into my Imperial Guards guy. Imperial Guardsman, guardsman, guardswoman, whatever gender yours is. And then I apply it to the shirt. Being careful not to go onto the armor. Doesn't matter if I get onto the skin because I'll be painting over that later. But as long as I'm careful with the armor, means that less have to do touch-up work with Death Guard green later. Taking care. So as you can see, because the paint isn't so clumpy, when it decides it's going to refocus, as you can see, it's bringing out those creases and not settling into them and bulking them up. This is what we want. It helps keep definition of the model. Now we can, and probably will, use 2 layers of this just to make sure it's completely coming out. Put a bit more on my paintbrush as we go around the little skirt bit. Now, as you can see, I follow the lines sometimes. This, once again, helps with the definition of any detail in the model. Like that bit there, got that crease, boom, standing out a bit more. And as you can see, I'm leaving a gap for where that belt is, for where the Adam Black is going to go. And again, just a little bit there, and a bit more on the cuff there. There we are. So you can see all the creases. That's going to be silver, so that's not too much of a hassle. And then finally, this arm around this side. Boom. Find the creases, so it gets in there. Just like that. Turn around underneath. Get a bit more. There we are. Look at that. At the top. Make sure that's all good. A little bit underneath. Just like that. Just like that. And there, like that. So that's the top. As you can see, it is nice and wet, so that's going to take some time to dry. As that dries, I'll get the others painted up in that same style, and then we'll move on to the legs, which will be Nurgling green. So I'll be back in a moment. Now that Elysian green is dry, you can see that it has really picked up around where the clothing is. We're now going to move on to the trousers, and for that I'm going to be using Nurgling green. Once again, giving it a good old shake. We'll zoom out. See the rest of the army there coming along. Once again, I'm going to be using that small layer brush. Once I get it open, boop. That's the extra small. I don't want the extra small at the moment. That'd be for the furs. The furs. There's my small layer. Once again, putting some on the top there. Won't need any more than that at the moment. We'll give it a bit of a water down, just so it flows a bit better. Cool. Then out the paint on my brush. I don't have too much. Ooh, a bit too fine. There we go. And now to paint the trousers. I'm doing my best not to get any onto where we got that Elysian green on, but if we do, we can just go over it. And this will dry very lightly. So you may, if you want, to put on 2 coats of Nurgling green. You can see it just starts to separate off, not by much, where the boots are. Try to obviously keep them off. Once again, if you can follow the lines off any sort of creases, just helps with that particular detail. When it gets to the pockets, we put a point to a brush by spinning it carefully, just doing that in between there. There we go. Put it around to the front. So as you can see, in some areas it's starting to patch with the Death Guard green showing underneath. Now you can keep that if you want to, or you can get rid of it. I prefer to keep it, as it sort of looks like some camouflage patterning on there, but sometimes that will just get covered up when we layer it. But that is the trousers. As you can see, a sort of distinction between the trousers and the Elysian green, so Nurgling Elysian. Of course, Death Guard green for the armor, starting out a bit better. And of course, these boots will be brown, and they will really stick out. So we're going to let this one dry, and then we get on with the trousers for the rest of the army, and then we'll move on to the boots and perhaps the gun. So there we are, there's the Nurgling green applied to the trousers, and as you can see, they're all really coming along quite nicely. We're now going to go on to the boots, so let's move the rest of the guys out of the way. Let's focus back out a bit. We're going to go with the Ridex hide next for the boots. Once again, I give it a good shake. I'm also going to be moving up to a medium layer brush, as there's not much detail on the boots. So once I've shaken it up, get out my pot, pop it onto my palette. So you can use one if you want to or not. I just do it because it's easier for me to control. A little bit of water, so it flows better. Excellent. Zoom in on our lovely Imperial Guardsman. Let the adjustments adjust. There we go. So it's a shame that that's happened there. All that is sometimes when you do spray, it does clump on, which is it's unfortunate in this instance. There we go. Plop them on the boots. When I get to that green trousers, do my best not to get it on there. But as I say, I could just re-go over it if absolutely necessary. All round. Boom. Brown. Booties. Booties to sitters. Oh, hello, missed a bit in the corner there. There we go. Underneath there. Lovely. Let's let him dry. We'll do another one as we can. Once again, aiming for these boots. Just on there like that. And this gives a definite definition between where the boots are and where the trousers are. It's a different way of doing things, as the boots are definitely the most strongest colour on the model, but the rest of it is deliberately designed to sort of blend in with each other. The boots just really stand out as something a bit different. As you can see, the subtle changes between the top and the trousers, and the boots. Boom! Brown boots. I don't know why I went bip bip when I'm painting boots, but there we go. One more model. Let's use the sergeant. Oh, he's a bit blurry. Let's do some adjustments on the focus. Focus. Looks like he's also suffered from paint clumping. Not too much though. As you can see, I've done some additional building of the bits there. There's been some paint clumping on the trousers from the spray. Fortunately, it happens. Best way, as I say, to get around those is just to shake it as much as possible. You could always just do manual painting of the base colour onto your models, but that does take quite a bit of time. And horde armies like the Imperial Guard, Tyranids, Orcs, they're a labour of love. A labour of love. There's so many models that you need to build and paint to make it an effective army that you don't really want to be painting all the bases by hand. So that can be rather tedious. But there we are, there's 3 done. I'll do the rest off camera, and then we'll move on to some of the metal parts. So yeah, so that's, as I say, coming on quite nicely. Booties, trousers, and jerkins. Jerkins? Tops. Let's just call them tops. And as you can see, then now all these models have their boots on. And you can see the slight differences between the Energal green and the Califaxy green, and then the Death Guard green for the armor and the shirt and the trousers. And you can really see what I was going on about with the contrast of the brown boots. And now we're going to move on to the lasguns themselves. Now, primarily, the Death Guard green is going to stick to the main body. The tips are going to be the lead belcher, as well as these little bits and these little bits. I'll show you what I mean with this guy. I'll do photo guy. Let's move everyone to the side, and let's get a lead belcher ready. So once again, give the pot a good little shake. Now I'll be using the small layer brush for this, because some of the details, well, quite close to some stuff that we've already painted. So small layer brush, get it on there. So you can see that this paint, if I actually move it in, you can see that this paint is actually quite a bit thicker than metallic paints normally are from Games Workshop. So it's best to fit it down in 1 to 2 coats of water. There we go. Make sure you get a nice tip on your brush by rolling the brush. Cool. Let's zoom in on our Imperial Guardsman. And then let's do what we need to do. So let's roll the tip of the lasgun here. Rotate and turn. Rotate and turn. And then underneath. Just like that. And then for the armor casing, getting all the angles. The bit along here, the bar, and this stock. Boom, and you see how it starts to bring out a bit more of the lasgun. That will be Balthasar gold in a bit. If you want to, you can obviously add different bits of silver, but that's what I'm going to go with there. For the sergeant, now he obviously has a bit more metal on him, so loading up a bit more on my brush. I'm going to go to his water canister. Lightly dab it. Lightly dab it. By lightly dabbing the water canister, it helps get into some of those recesses, bringing out a bit more of the detail, which we'll go over with the Warlock Bronze. For the chainsword, quite simple. So we get enough on the bush, just with the tip, run it down like that, giving us the chain blades. There we go, like that. For the handle, once again, just rotate, just like that. And then of course on the other side, chain blades, once again, the tip. Turn the other way around so I can do it properly. Boom. Just like so. Now I have a decision to make. For this bit here, I can either make it gold and darken it up to bronze, or I could silver it. I'm going to go for the bronze, I think, for that one. And of course, his last pistol. That's pistol. And the ammo case for the last pistol. It doesn't have a stock like the las gun, but yeah, there he is. It's the las pistol. One more to just confirm, the guardsman of the bayonet. Now the bayonet is just a big clump. The guard there, or hilt, whatever you want to call it. Across the top like so, turn him around, outside, just like that, in there like so, underneath, double check we got everything on the front, no we haven't, here we go, across the top, getting a little bar there, ammo pack, and the stock. There we are. Now I'll do the rest of them off screen, but that gives you an idea of how the lad's going to stand out from the rest of the guardsmen. So I'll see you in a bit. So now, as you see, all the base metalwork is done on the ends, on the ammo packs, on the stocks, on the little knotch bits here. As you can see with the Vox caster, I've just completely gone all over the Vox array with the lead belcher for us. We're now moving on to the gold detail. So for that, as I said earlier, we will be using Balthasar Gold. So give it a quick shake, and I will be going to use the extra small fine detail layer brush for all the fine detail. Now lead belcher, like all Balthasar Gold, like lead belcher, being a metal paint, means it's a bit thicker than standard paint. Let's get some out. Look how gloopy that is. Gloopy. Gonna put that there. Look how thick and not workable it is. Gonna need quite a bit. See it sticking to the brush and how thick it is, even after being shaken. This is where we need this water. help get it a bit looser. There we go. And then we just put a fine end on the brush by rotating it. Also helps get rid of a lot of paint that we don't want. Cool. Let's move some guys to the side. Bring this down. So you can see what I'm going for. So as you can see, there are the Imperial symbols. And that is what we're after. Like that. Boom. Simple. Very simple. Now, with the Voxcaster, there's also a little symbol on the back. So we get that on. He's done there. You can obviously add more gold if you want to. Let's get up another Imperial Guardsman. Now, with this Guardsman, you can see here the symbol on the armour there. So make sure you paint that. So now if you get it on the hand, we'll sort that out in a minute. My tip's going on the brush. Just give it another tip up. Slowly. Boom. And just to show you with the Sergeant, you got that symbol there. Gets highlighted. You got his symbol, the Imperial symbol on the chainsword. Which will get done. There we go. Now also, because of the chainsword, I wanted to do that bit. In the Belfast gold, just so. There we go. Just like that. Of course, on the las gun, or las pistol in this case, the Imperial symbol there. So yeah, that's the gold bits. I'll finish the rest of the gold bits on the rest of the army, and then we'll go for the skin, which will be the next step. So see you in a minute. Now we've got the gold all applied and dried to each of the models on the las gun and the helmets, and where I can inside the armor there. Put the little symbol on the armor there. We're now going to move on to the flesh of the Imperial Guardsman. For that, I'm using a Rakoff flesh. It's a darker colour, but we can lighten it up if you wanted to. I'm not, because I prefer the darker colour. It does actually make much more of a proper flesh tone than the way I can do it normally. So I'm going to pop it open. Now as you can see, there's quite a lot of this in here. Once again, using the extra small blush, getting it out onto my palette so I can have control over it. That's pretty runny, so only a little bit of water needed to help with the application of it run smoothly, so it doesn't clump up too much. Just going to put a fine end on my brush, and with your Imperial Guardsman, just carefully plop it in. Now, because it's runny, it should act like a little shade. As you can see, it just flops and goes in there. Sometimes you just need to work out the air bubbles, and that should dry nicely. Onto the hands. having to be careful not to get it onto any of the gold or any of the green for the stock of the las gun, or onto the green of the shirt. If you do, you can always just go back over that area with that colour, and you may want to apply two thin coats, as you can see with the control that you get with the small layer brush. You can get the extra fine layer brush once my camera decides it's going to focus. You can get that finger on the trigger standing up quite nicely, and what we can do is we can get those eyes in as well with a lighter colour. But as you can see, the guardsmen have really started to come along. I'm going to get the rest of them painted with their faces and the hands, and I may go over them again once they've dried, depending on how it dries. As you can see still see some of the green underneath. So I'll see you in a bit. So that's the flesh all done and on, and as you can see, it has really started to bring these models into a bit more of a humanoid feature. Now onto probably the last of the mini layers before we go on to the shading, which is for all the belts, all the leather bits, and that is with Avon Black. I'm going to give this a quick shake, as always, moving some models off the page. Let's go for easiest one to do. You'll be an easier. You two will be my examples. Let's move everyone else off to the side. So these will be my example ones. Yeah, that's the paint all nicely shooken and mixed. Now once again, using the extra fine layer one, making sure bottom I get me a blob of paint onto a palette of some description. Now you can see that's quite a strong black. Gonna need a bit of water just to help it flow. There we are. Make sure I get a nice tip on the edge of my brush. And let's start with the sergeant. So there's the sergeant. Now, what this bit is going to be used for is all sorts of things like this. So where you would have things being attached to with a sort of black leather, if you will. Just down the side like that. Being careful not to get on any of the previous bits that we've already coloured. But if we do, we can just go over those bits with that particular colour. For example, if I was to get on the trousers, I just go back over it with the Nerglin green. Got a bit on there, so I'll just have to go really over that with some lead belcher over the ammo pack. Underneath there, and on the back. And that's generally why, if you do an Imperial Guard army, you don't normally put the extra bits on the side, because it just takes a bit more time. In an Imperial Guard army, there's about 90 plus infantry models to paint. And even though you want them to be tabletop ready, yeah, don't want to go to too much fine detail, because there's loads of models to paint. Absolute loads. So yeah, you got the belt, the holes on the top, you got the ammo packs, got the cover for the knife. Once again, showing you on a normal Imperial Guardsman that isn't a sergeant. Once he's decided to come into focus. Ghost belt just there. Just see it. Just see it there. So carefully as always. It doesn't matter too much if you do get it on the shirt, because you could always, as I say, go over it with the Elysian green. The bits where it's just gone a bit too much over the sides. That's why it's best to have the finest brush you can. I'm always trying to get that point. So you will need a bit of tidying up. But that is his belt on. And that's going to be the same with all the other guardsmen. Some are going to be a bit more trickier than others. When that's dry, there's going to be a nice sort of contrast to show that where everything's being held in. So I'm going to paint the rest of them, let them dry, and then we'll move on to the shading. Alright, so they're all now done with the belts nicely on, so it's time for possibly the easiest bit, and that is the shading of Agrath's Urkshade. It just needs a little shake, just make sure that it's nice and flowing. I'm going to be using the medium shade brush. Pop, open, to get some in here. Now, the shade brush, you need to load up, and you need to puddle your shade. I do it so it's easier for me to utilize. Now, quite simple really. Find your model, so there's not too much shade on your brush, and then just go blah, 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 all over it. Making sure that it's not getting too clumped in any sort of areas. So you see around here on the eyes and stuff, when it decides it's actually going to bloody focus. So you see that it's starting to puddle in these eyes and stuff. You can just flick it down, flick it away, make sure it doesn't puddle up too badly, because that will cause clumping, and we don't want any sort of clumping. What this will do is settle into all those little creases, recesses, make the model have a bit more depth, a bit more texture, bring out all those bits, make him look a bit darker as well, so not so shiny, like he's been walking for a while, fighting for a while, travelling for a while. So just making sure it doesn't settle anywhere too heavily and gets into all those details. Boom. One done. 9 to go. Once again, grab your Imperial Guard, get some shade, all over it. Now you probably see with the Voxcaster that I also use the Abaddon Black for the wiring. It's just help bring out that wiring a bit more. Dirty up the Vox array. Dirty it up. Dirty it up. You can see that already. What's this done with the silver? It's gone from that brightness to sort of muddiness. That's what we're after. That's what we're after. Just takes off some of that shininess, if you will. Doesn't make him look so clean, because why would you look clean in a combat environment when you've been fighting? And plus it just makes him look cooler. And it dulls down on the metal. Right, let's see if I can actually get one that's completely in focus for the entirety of it. Right, hello Sergeant. Boom. There we are, see, just like that. See already what it's doing? Especially from the face area. Especially in the armour. Getting it underneath all those cracks. It's bringing out all the little definitions. So making sure it doesn't pull too badly in any of the recesses. Continuously moving it so it just settles evenly. We don't want uneven settling. Now especially for the gold bits on the chainsword, I will add a second layer to the chainsword area of the sergeant. This will just be to dull it down a bit more. There we are. You get the general idea. So I'll get the rest of them done, and when they're dry, we'll then move on to the highlighting. Right, now the shade is all dry on each of the models, and you can see that they're now all slightly darker. It's time to start the highlighting. I'm going to start with the silver, and for that, as I said, I'm using Stormhouse Silver. Needs a little shake, obviously, and I'm going to be using the small artificial layer brush, the extra small one. Now, very, very bright Stormhouse Silver, so I only use a little bit at each time. Ensure that my brush is at a tip. When I go to our Imperial Guardsman, I'm looking at areas where the light catches, so you can see from the way that I'm holding it for this particular model, it's along there, along the ridge of the las gun, along the top of that metal bit, and along the top of that bit. And that's it. That guardsman. Next one is again looking where the light catches. So once again, just across the top, around the edge of the las gun, along the top of that bit, and ever so slightly in there. Except for that guardsman. For the Voxcaster, around the edge there, along the top there, along that bit. Now he does have a bit more metal on him, so he catches a bit around there, bit around there, just a bit on the tip. On his backpack, got all these sort of raised edges where it just slightly catches. And I suppose a little bit on that ridge there, as well as a bit on his talkie box. Boom. Nice and simple. Normal guardsman without a bayonet. Once again, a little bit of highlight on the edge of the las gun. A little bit of highlight there. Yeah, a bit of highlight there. That's all. For the sergeant, a bit different. He's got a highlight on the edge of his chainsword. Highlights all the way down there. Just like that. Highlight on the top of his las pistol. highlight on the top of that bit. Now it does have a headset. Don't know if you can see it. What we'll do for that is very, very carefully just pick it out. Pick out the headset. Pick it out. I've got to decide what colour I'm going to do his hair. But if we pick out his headset, boom. I suppose there will be a little bit of highlighting on the symbol. So yeah, quite simple highlighting, nothing too major for it. Just simply picking up all those raised edges, mainly on the las guns, where the light would certainly be catching, not where it wouldn't be. So we're not going completely over it with the Stormhead Silver. As you can see, it's just adding a bit more definition, if you would. Just helping pick up those most brighter areas. There's only one more guardsman to do. On the top, boom, just like that. So now all those guardsmen have their highlights on. I have to give my brush a quick clean, and then we'll move on to the last bit of the las gun, which is the little red dot at the end of each las gun. The brush is nice and clean, keeping with this extra fine layer one. Gotta grab the corn red once again with all the paints, shake quite a, don't need a lot of it, just a little dab. Make sure we don't have too much on the brush, keeping the point on the brush. Now, see this little bit here? Just gonna go there. That's it. That is it. That's all this highlight is. It's literally single red dot at the end of the las gun. Just there. Just there. So it looks like it's being fired with the las pistol. Just on the end. Just on the end. Just on the end. Two more left. Boom. And one more. And there. Just like that. So going to show you guys what these guys now look like properly. So the last thing left to do on these guys is to base them up. For that I'm going to be using a medium layer brush, and I'm going to be starting off with some Steel Legion Drab. I'll be taking it straight from the pot, so I make sure I give it all a good quick shake. Pop it up there like that. Don't need the water for a second. Get that off, get a nice big blob. Actually I might use the palette just to make sure I've got how much paint I've actually got. Quite a bit. It is quite clumpy actually, so it does need a little dab, just to Get a nice consistency. Once again, keeping a nice tip on the brush, even though it is a medium layer one. Put that to the side. Now, with the guardsman, you've got the rim of the base here. That's where the steel legion jab is going to go. Doesn't matter if you get it on the actual middle base at all. It's going to need two layers, because obviously the Death Guard green is going to show up a bit. Just do that around the edge of the base. So here's another one. Make sure I get enough paint on the brush. Just simply dragging it across. What this does is it helps the base merge together with the texture that I'm going to put on for like representation of what they're walking on. Now of course you can do a white base if you wanted for like snow, you could do a grey base for like rock. As I'm doing a sort of mud motif, the Steel Legion drab is one of the better ones. And not only that, but because the Steel Legion drab is a muted colour or a combination colour, even if this army was to say end up in a city scene where it was fighting in the city, or a hive or anything like that, because of this it wouldn't clash so much. Now of course complete dirt in a city is not normal, even for a hive city, but it does help just unify the units so they all look that they belong together, all fighting on the same battlefield. As you can see, it's really a separation. I'll do the rest of these off the camera and then we'll get on to the textured base. Okay, so now to finish off the guardsmen and the bases, I'm going to be using this Alarian Earth. Now for this we need the special texture tool, because this paint isn't like normal paint. You can't exactly just put it on. So when I get it out, you can see it's quite a thicky gloop. Gloop! That's what it is, it's gloop! So first time, on the base of the sergeant here, just lay it on like that, and spread it around. Spread it around. Now the texture, if you will, has flakes of particles in it, which are different to normal paint. Like actually has pieces of sand, things like that in it. Now as you see, when you get to the leg bits, foot bits, you split it around the smaller end, then just push it around the feet. Doesn't matter if you get it on the boots, because it looks like it's been walking in the mud, which I think is a pretty cool effect, personally. And the back of the boot. When that dries, that will give a nice little earth basis. Now, by flicking the paint as you do the texture as I'm doing here, especially this one, adds the illusion of uneven ground. And the same with a normal guardsman. Put it on, spread it around. It's the only one that you take directly from the pot. You don't water it down. Don't need to water it down or anything like that. Just literally slap it straight on. You can put as much or as little of this on as you want, as required. As I say, you can choose your own texture. You don't even have to use texture if you don't want to. You can use your own paint scheme to do the base, as long as it matches the rest of the army. So I'll do the rest of those and then we'll be able to show them off. And there we have it. This squad of Imperial Guardsmen, painted in colours inspired by military from World War I, World War II, in modern day, with the greens and the browns. Get a nice zoom in there. Ooh, hello. Come on, come on. So as you can see, the fact that they look like they're walking through mud is quite good. The angle of the light that's reflecting from the highlights is brilliant. The gold brings out those details, the little red laser bits shooting away. I know I need to put some hair colour on the sergeant, but nah. Of course, the Roxcaster at the very end there, making sure that orders are relayed. So I hope that you enjoyed this little video of a painting guide. I don't normally do painting guides. It's probably my first one. I know just paint them the way I like to paint them. But I thought, why not do a squad of Imperial Guardsmen based on World War II, World War I, and modern day sort of army combat gear. So there we are. As always, if you're enjoying the video and have any questions or suggestions, put them in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, click on any other videos you like. Until the next one, this is DCB for the Emperor, for mankind, and of course, knowledge is power if we use it wisely.